first of all, I want to say that we did not color coordinate. This was an accident. But anyway, it looks good, so that's good. Secondly, I just want to get straight into the question, because you know this is Denville. With Denville, we just answer questions according to what's in our heart. So, right? Okay, so, and maybe, do you think that maybe one day we can meet Krista?
That'd be cool.
That would be great. Krista's his beautiful wife. And then you can see for yourself what I've said in another video, that they are doppelgangers, even though he is black and she is white.
That's awesome.
So I noticed it immediately when they got together. Anyway, so I'll read the question. And Michelle Brown gave both Denville and me, anyway, a question. And it is, okay, thank you, Michelle. A question for Denville. How has working in law enforcement, where there is always a gray area, affected your views on religion? Do you believe that some people are just bad, or is there a spiritual force behind their actions? And then for me, and then my answer is short, so I will just answer mine, and then he can expound on both. A question for Miss Mary, and I've never been called Miss Mary. I love that. Such respect, thank you. A question for Miss Mary. What in your life, bad or good, do you look back at and think that if it didn't happen, where would you be? I see so many people talking about regrets, but it's only what they perceive to be bad. Oftentimes, it is the total opposite. And I agree 100% with you, Michelle. My answer is very brief, because look, if you look back at my other videos, you can see that I was psychologically so messed up. I was so messed up as a teenager, you wouldn't even believe it. And I was on drugs. I was just, in fact, the goal of my life when I was 16 was to be put in a mental hospital.
Wow. Wow.
I talked about that in some back videos, but anyway, because I thought there I could just get all the attention in the world and not have to do anything, right? So, but but it's nice, right? Well, not really. Thank God it didn't happen. But so for me, what I tell everybody is every single experience has turned out so well. I would not change one thing in my life, not one, because I don't know, it's just been amazing. And I always tell everybody that my very darkest moments have become, God has touched them somehow and turned it all for good, that my darkest moments are my most precious treasures.
Wow.
It's from those hard times that I've overcome with his help that I am able to help others. So now you can look at this to see. And
I think I've retained it.
Oh, you retained it? Okay.
But like it's really awesome, because both questions kind of, now that I think about it, both questions kind of sound like very similar, you know, like how you're saying there's not a place where like you see how the bad things eventually turn or lead to something that's good, you know. And so it kind of forces us, again, you know, like not to get like super philosophical, but it does force us to question, like, what do we mean when we say bad, you know, like, because that is very subjective. And so to say that like there's a gray area in law enforcement, and do we believe that someone is a bad person, you know, like whenever I hear those types of questions, I always have to ask myself, how many things contrary to your belief system does someone have to do before they're considered bad?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So first off, something that's bad for you may not be bad to me, and so for a third party, if they do something that's contrary to your system but not contrary to mine, like, are they a bad person?
Except, sorry for interrupting, yes, but Hitler comes to my mind.
There, right? And so, like, many people followed Hitler.
Yeah.
And what he was doing wasn't bad. Yeah. To those people.
Yeah.
But for those who did not stand with him, and for those who fought against him, what he was doing was bad, right? And so there's always a position, and how many things do you have to do before you're considered a bad person? So how many people does Hitler have to kill before we say that he's a bad person? Is it the first one? Is it the second one? Is it after he kills 1,000? Is it 999? You know what I mean? Like, how many people do you have to kill in the case of Hitler before we consider him to be a bad person? You know, and so that kind of takes it into an area that I'm beginning to see the world. You know, I'm beginning to see the world in a certain way. And not that I'm there yet, and not that I completely grasp this view yet, but even in law enforcement, one of the things that really helped me to be able to do the job in a certain way that didn't conflict with my belief system is that I don't believe that they're bad people.
Wow.
Like,
yeah.
I just don't believe that they're bad people.
Like Hitler when he was born.
Yeah, like I don't believe there's such a thing as a bad person.
Yeah.
I think that people are a product of their environment. I think people are a product of their struggle. I think people are a product of greed. They're a product of pride. They're a product of envy. They're a product of hate.
Yes.
And so you put someone. It's like science. You know, you take certain ingredients and you mix them together. You're gonna get a certain product. You know.
That's true.
And so you could put, like you were sharing that you used to be on drugs. You know. Growing up, for me, drugs was never a struggle for me. You could put me in an environment that was riddled with drug dealers and availability, and it just never appealed to me. You could take some other people and put them in the same environment, and they couldn't help themselves for 5 seconds before they start to binge, you know? And so...
you never wanted to experience getting high?
Never.
Wow.
I've just never had that desire. Now, I have other struggles, which hopefully we'll talk about sometime, you know? But that just wasn't my struggle, you know? And so, like, I see it like science, you know? If you take people with a certain disposition and you put them in a certain environment, then certain things are going to become a product of that, you know? And I think it's the same way. I don't think anyone is born inherently bad. I think people are born different. And so dependent on your makeup, coupled with your environment, coupled with your experiences, coupled with the hurt, coupled with the pain, coupled with everything, the totality of your life, yeah, it can produce some bad actions.
And chemical stuff too.
Yeah, so there's so many different things that really affects our humanity. I mean, it's really hard to say this makes a bad person.
That's
you know,
true.
like it's and I think like one of the things that I really enjoy about like my life as a Christian, you know, as opposed to like when I wasn't a Christian, I was kind of forced to find ways to see the world, you know. And now as a Christian, I find that the goal for me in my Christian life, like, so, you know, people think of Christianity, the goal is to get to heaven or whatever. I don't really believe that's the ultimate goal of Christianity, but like one of the things I think Christianity is most effective in the earth is that it helps us to see the world as a loving God sees the world. Like that is the goal.
Yes.
And so the more that we start to get closer to God, the more we start to see the world as God does. And God sees the world in a certain way where like he sees the heart of people.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And so God can see beyond the action because all that we see are action. And so we see the behavior, like we experience the hurt, we see the turmoil, we see the trouble, and that's all that we see because we can only spend so much time with another human being and see what's going on in their lives, or we only know as much as people tell us. But I think that even deeper, like behind closed doors, like even like God knows what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And so when he looks at a person, he considers that. And even deeper than closed doors, he knows what goes on behind a closed heart.
Yes.
And so he looks at that and he considers that.
He knows the heart better than we know.
Yeah.
He knows me better than I know me.
And there's so many dimensions like to our humanity more than our behavior. And I think that for us to try to give titles to each other strictly based on our behavior and the things that we do and try to gauge them under good or bad, I think that's always going to lead us to a place where there's going to be division. It's always going to lead us to a place where there's going to be strife. It's going to lead us to a place where we're always going to be in conflict, and it removes the oh so necessary seed of love that needs to exist. Like it forces that. You know what I mean? And so there's just more to life than what we see. A scientist can tell you that. You know, there's more to life than what the naked eye can see, and the naked eye sees behavior, and the naked eye sees what's a product of an environment. But I think that God sees our hearts, he sees our lives, he sees the depths of us, he sees, like, I know that the Lord sees things in people that they can't even articulate to me. And so some people try to explain their actions and why they committed certain crimes, and everyone has an excuse, but they can't even articulate it, they don't even know it well, but I believe that God knows the heart. And so the goal of my walk in Christianity is is to help is to start to see the world like God sees it.
Yeah.
To start to see,
Nice.
like, to start to have the heart that God has, because God sees so much more than behavior. And so I can no longer just look at someone's behavior and then put some title on the opposite end of that equal sign and then make something of them. You know.
Exactly.
So
Denville, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because I think that we got to cut it
Yeah.
off
No,
soon.
no,
but
no, no.
we don't. Oh, tell me, Jose, how many more minutes? About 4 more minutes. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. I wanted to say, one day, will you tell us what changed you, that you didn't want to be an atheist, that you stopped being an atheist?
yeah, I told that story last night to a friend.
I would love it.
It was
Because
really
that's,
cool.
I mean, that is a,
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to hear that.
Yeah,
someday.
I'll share. I'll share my story.
And
It's
one day
fun.
I'd love Krista to come on and tell her. Maybe we can meet your babies too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
We could do that. But yes, I mean, I think that's really neat, you know. And I love the answer to your question also, you know. Like, it takes out the place for having regrets in everything that you do, you know. I think that we're always gonna look back at life and question, like, what if, you know. I question, what if I never became a Christian? What if I never left my first job in retail? What if I never got married? What if I never became a cop? What if I never left law enforcement? What if I never pastored the church? You know, like, what if? And our lives look like this mathematical equation where if you just change one number, the whole formula is off, you know. And I think there's always going to be that question of what if, no matter what you do. If you stay, you're going to wonder, what if I went? And if you go, you're going to wonder, what if I stayed? And it's unavoidable. And so I think that because there's no real perfect situation where we're gonna have the answer to both things, I think being content in the path that we travel, and just trusting that, you know, like, there's some, whether you believe in God or not, but there's something in the universe that somewhere down the line takes these terrible things, and we just see that good things come of terrible pain.
And one more little thing that you made me think of was one of the biggest changes in my life was because God forgave me,
Yeah.
I was able to forgive myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that also was enabled me to see, to change my dark times into treasures.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I mean that, and that's
And forgive
that's,
others.
and that's beautiful. You know, I often wonder, like, what would have happened if I had made different decisions in my life, and I never get an answer. You know, and I never get a productive answer that leads me into a better life. And I think that I'm right. I believe, honestly, I believe that, like, wherever you are in life, like, that is the best place to start. You know what I mean? Like, every time you,
Yeah.
like, that's the best place to start the
This
next
moment.
the next thing, you know, the next step ahead. Because if we continue to look backward, you're just going to see that the road is going to split at every decision, and it just throws us into a world of confusion. And so, you know, it's good to glance back at where we were, to not forget, and just to learn from those things. But I think to try to recount them and try to make sense of, you know, what would have happened if I'd done something different. I've taken many people to jail as a law enforcement officer who have shared, you know, that this is probably the best thing that's happened to me.
Wow.
Because it's like a wake-up call, you know.
Yeah.
And I know that they're not saying they love the fact that they're getting to go to jail, but they're seeing that, like, if this didn't happen, something inside of them would not have happened, you know. And so I so love the scripture in Romans 8 where Paul says that, you know, God works all things together for the good of those who love him, you know. And I think that God is constantly working the good things together. And we see that even in the lives of people who may not be Christian. Like, God loves the world, and he's
It's
working
so true.
things together for his humanity. You know, he works us and molds us together. So
I love your answer. Thank you, Denville.
Thank you.
And thank you, Michelle, for asking it. And that's
Thank
all
you.
for now.
thank you.
Bye.